These are the things we're going to be discussing in the very first part of this conversation. We'll talk about what the CISSP is. Obviously, for you to have signed up for this course, I'm sure you already have an understanding of what we mean by CISSP. So a couple of the things I'm going to be saying here, you may already know. And then also a couple of the things we're going to be saying here, you may already have heard them before. But then a true professional doesn't mind being reminded. Okay, so first, we're going to take a look at the CISSP. CISSP is what we refer to as one of the major certifications, especially when it comes to information security. CISSP simply stands for Certified Information System Security Professional. That's the full meaning of the CISSP, Certified Information System Security Professional. So part of what we're going to be taking a look at, again, would include the various domains that we have in the CISSP. There are 8 of them. So during the course of this training, we'll go through those 8 domains. In fact, that's basically what the training would cover. So our goal is to be able to treat at least 2 domains on a daily basis. We shall also talk about why the CISSP is important, then talk about the various certification requirements, the things that you need to enable you get certified. Then also we're going to take a look at the CISSP exam, so you can also see the exam format. The certification is governed by the ISC2. In other words, ISC2 is the name of the body or the organization that is responsible for this certification. The full meaning of ISC2 is International Information System Security Certification Consortium. So if you notice, everything is 2. I is 2, S is 2, C is 2. So that's why they made it ISC, and then of course they now put a square at the top, meaning each of these things are 2. During the first or the early days of CISSP certification, the website for ISC2 was so long that most times people don't even get the website correctly. Because before you finish typing International Information System Security Certification Consortium.org, either you've made a mistake in one spelling. Also, there were a lot of spamming and all of that. So I think they basically just thought about it and said, maybe they could just change the name to ISC2. And that's basically how the name emerged. So the CISSP is a vendor-neutral security certification. Vendor-neutral simply means you can use it across different industries. So it's not like we're doing this maybe for only a particular industry. No. It's simply saying that anywhere you choose to adopt it, it will still work. So if you choose to adopt these particular steps, standards that you will learn in the course of the training, it will also work in your organization. It doesn't matter the organization or the industry that you work in. It will also help you in defining your architecture, designing your management, and then also control measures that you need to put in place. Note that the CISSP takes a look at information security from a managerial perspective. In essence, we're going to be taking a look at things from manager's perspective. So usually when people come into this course, I tell them, you are going to be the one advising, not the one doing. The technical people are the ones that do it, but then the managerial are the ones that give advice. So you're the one that's going to be putting in place policies. You're the one that's going to be putting in place standards, procedures, which of course will now enable the technical people to be able to implement relevant security within the organization. So CISSP looks at things purely from a managerial perspective. So more or less see yourself like you're a consultant. You're consulting for an organization, and then you're giving them advice about measures that they can take in order to enhance information security within their organization. And that's basically one of the best ways to take a look at the CISSP certification. Aside from that, the CISSP is also based on what we call the CBK. Please note, CBK simply means Common Body of Knowledge. That's the full meaning of CBK, Common Body of Knowledge. So the Common Body of Knowledge is the official publication by the ISC2. Please note, I'm going to share the document with you. This slide, I'm also going to share it with you, as well as a recorded video as well. So the CBK, or the Common Body of Knowledge, is the official publication from the ISC2, which of course is now where the CISSP is based upon. Everything we're going to be discussing in this particular training was actually taken from the CBK, that's the Common Body of Knowledge. All the knowledge areas or the domains, 8 of them that we're going to be discussing, and every single information or content that you have here, all of them, of course, are taken from this CBK, which is the common body of knowledge. So remember earlier on, I told you that the body responsible for the certification in CISSP is known as the ISC2. So this is basically to introduce you to the ISC2. Remember I said ISC2 stands for International Information System Security Certification Consortium. Okay, so that's why you now have it as IS raised to power 2. So they are the global leader when it comes to information security, and they are also the ones who publish the CBK, which is the common body of knowledge. So the CISSP is broken down into 8 domains, and these are the 8 domains that we have within the CISSP. Okay, so the very first domain here is the security and risk management. And that's the number 1 domain, security and risk management. Then the second domain is asset security, followed by the third one, which is security architecture and engineering. And then the fourth domain is communications and network security. The fifth domain is identity and access management. The sixth domain is security assessment and testing. The sixth one is security operations. And then, of course, the final one is software development security. So if we take an overview of these 8 domains that we have in the CISS, I want you to interpret the 8 domains as the different areas of focus when it comes to protecting your computers as well as your information within the organization. So for example, you know how in school then you had different subjects that teaches you different skills. So these are also like different subjects that will help you to be able to protect information within your organization. Beginning with the very first one, which is security and risk management. So the security and risk management domain would focus on what could possibly go wrong, especially with regards to information in your organization, then also help you to be able to put plans in place in order to keep them safe. So for example, if you have, let's say, specific set of information within the organization, so security and risk management will basically help you to know the kind of things that can affect that particular set of information, and then, of course, make plans to be able to address it, which is essentially what this first domain would focus on. Then the second domain is now asset security. When we talk about assets, assets are things that are valuable. Anything valuable at all is referred to as an asset. For example, your computers. Say, for example, your servers. Say, for example, your data, your software. All of these are assets, people within the organization, even your facility. All of these are assets that typically are owned or you find within organization. So asset security basically focuses on how can we keep these things protected? How can we keep our computers protected? If, for example, your computer, you don't put a password on it and then you leave it out there in the open. Now, don't forget that that's basically having a situation where you're leaving it out to threat. But then if you put a password and you don't leave it out in the open, and then you have control measures in place for people entering and leaving the organization, you are implementing what we call asset security. You are protecting something that is valuable to you. You are protecting not just the system, but then you're also protecting the data that is contained within the system as well. All of this is basically what asset security focuses on. Then the next domain that we're going to take a look at will now be security architecture and engineering. So security engineering is taken from the word engineering. You know, engineering field, especially in the field of civil, electrical, mechanical, they've gone far in terms of being able to come up with measures to be able to achieve a particular objective or result. So I was saying that if a civil engineer, for example, designs a bridge, they can tell you how long that bridge will last. Say, for example, that this bridge will last for 10 years or 20 years or 50 years. Now, to be able to do that, they will use a combination of standards. Maybe if we use this strength of steel rod and this mixture of cement, sand, and granite, this is the thickness we're going to get. And then this is how long this kind of thickness can last. So what we do in security engineering is to also see how we can apply similar principle. Here, we'll now talk about how we can build and design systems, be able to put in place relevant measures, standards, just like we do in engineering, in order to ensure information security. So here we'll talk about things like your firewalls, your antivirus program, all of the things that you do in order to keep threats away and then also enhance information security within your organization. That's exactly what security engineering would focus on. Then the next domain now talks about communications and network security. When we talk about communications and network security, we're basically talking about ensuring that information that travels between systems in the organization are kept safe, especially from hackers. When you send a message, you want to be sure that the hacker does not intercept the message. When messages are sent to your organization, you want to be sure that there are no intruders or people stopping the message midway. You don't want the persons who are not authorized to have messages or information about specific things going on in the organization to have access to it. Network security basically is more or less putting a message in a sealed envelope. The sealed envelope in this case can now be called encryption or hashing, and then delivering it safely to the recipient so that only the recipient will now be able to access the information because that information was actually meant for the recipient. And that's exactly what we're going to be taking a look at under communications as well as network security. So the next domain now talks about identity and access management. So identity and access management domain, of course, would focus on ensuring that only the right people or systems have access to the right information at the right time. This is what identity and access management would focus on. So here we're going to talk about things like authentication, authorization, as well as accountability measures, making sure that you're the right entity before you can have access to a particular subject or object that we have within the information. Within every organization, there is some level of information classification. You notice again that it's not everyone that has access to everything within the organization. If, for example, I come to your organization, say, for example, as an intern, I may not have access to the payroll data to know how much everybody is earning, for example. And then aside from that, to be able to log onto my system, I might require multi-factor authentication. For example, put my username and password, and then maybe in some cases, biometrics, maybe fingerprint or face scan as the case may be. So this is basically what identity and access management talks about, ensuring that you're the right entity and then that only the right entity can have access to assets that we have within the organization. Then we're also going to take a look at the next domain, which talks about security assessment and testing. The essence of security assessment and testing is we checking ourselves first before the attacker can attack us. That's what happens under security assessment and testing. I remember back then in the university, so anytime you came into school, especially in my department, you'll notice that there's this one very popular man. I started hearing his name from year one, Mr. Okafor. So students were always saying that Mr. Okafor, that if the guy is invigilating exam, forget it. You don't need to carry any expo. The rumor was that the man uses jazz, he uses juju to catch people who are carrying expo. I was always looking forward to the day the man would invigilate exam. Let me see how he uses the juju to catch people who are using expo and the things we refer to as microchips back in the years. So luckily for me, one of our exams, Mr. Okafor was the invigilator. So when he walked in, he had this aura around him anyway. I don't know, but maybe because of the kind of reputation and what I've heard about him. He was a very tall, huge man, and he had this very deep voice. So the moment he entered, from the front of the class, he stood tall, and then he made that announcement that if you are carrying any expo on you, you better come out and drop them now because you know I will catch you. Do you know that immediately he made that announcement, some students stood up, started removing things from on printable places that I can mention from their body. Some of them started dropping it in the front of the classrooms. You could see people bringing out big textbooks that even wondering how those things were able to fit it into some compartments of their body. He got it so bad that some persons even stood up outrightly and left the examination hall. It was that bad. Okay? So after all of that now, he now says, the grace period has ended. If you still have anything and you haven't dropped it, okay, we'll see it later. And then, like I mentioned, some persons stood up again, dropped on stuff, and some persons stood up and left. But later, I was now asking myself, is this really jazz? Well, this man is using psychology because I feel like he was playing on the student's psyche, maybe because of that fear factor. But the key thing I'm taking away from that illustration is he will say, search yourself before I will catch you. So this is similar to what we do under security assessment and testing. This is basically we searching ourselves as an organization, determining where there are vulnerabilities in our own organization so that an attacker will not take advantage of such vulnerability. So that's where you hear about ethical hacking or white hat hacking. This is where we do penetration testing, trying to hire or use somebody to see if the person can actually break it into our system to find out if there are weaknesses before our system before the real hacker will do so. And if they find any flaw, we can now determine how to fix and prevent the future attacks. Then we now talk about security operations. When we talk about operations, operations are more or less ongoing activities, business as usual. That's what we call operations. I remember back then in my project management class, we were taught the difference between project and operations. Then they taught us that project is temporal. It will have a defined start and finish date. But then when project finishes, operations step in. Operations are those repetitive set of activities that you will now begin to do without an end in sight, which we normally refer to as business as usual. If you're now looking at it from the perspective of security, when we talk about security operation, we're basically saying that security, information security should be an ongoing thing. It should be something that you do on a continuous basis. You never get to a point where you say that, oh, okay, as far as the information security is concerned, for this organization, we have done everything that we can. Nothing can potentially go wrong again, and we have fixed everything. No. So security operation is simply saying that as much as possible, for as long as that organization exists, there will still be threats. And you need to put measures in place to be able to mitigate or manage those particular threats. And then the last domain, we now focus on software development security. So this is basically built on software development. So let's say, for example, as an organization, we're into software development. So it will now involve how we can make sure that we develop software in a safe as well as secure manner, adopting secure coding practices, ensuring that we carry out testing for vulnerabilities, ensuring that we implement updates or patches in order to fix security flaws that we may discover in specific software. So let's say, for example, we're building an application for mobile banking. We need to ensure that no sensitive data like password or account number will be stored on the user's device in plain text so that somebody cannot just come and pick the person's phone and is able to immediately see the person's phone or rather account number and then also password to the person's login details. We also need to be sure that as much as possible, we review the code in order to make sure that we don't have any potential vulnerabilities that a hacker might exploit and then begin to siphon people's money from the account. These are some of the things that we'll focus on when we now discuss software development security. All of these are the various domains, 8 of them. I just gave you an overview of what each of these domains stands for. Of course, those are the things we're going to be covering in detail as we proceed in the course of this training. So for you to have wanted to do this particular program, I'm sure you already know some of the benefits or the things you're hoping to gain. So for you to become a certified professional, these are some of the benefits. One, it will demonstrate that you have a working knowledge of information security. Aside from that, it also shows your commitment to information security profession. And then it also offers a career differentiator with enhanced credibility and marketability. So if you become a CISSP certified person, obviously that will distinguish you from a whole lot of others within that space. Then CISSP professionals tend to earn higher than non-certified counterparts. You're most likely going to earn 25% higher. Studies have shown that CISSP professionals earn an average of 25% more than their non-certified counterparts. As a member of the ISC2, there are also some other benefits. For example, conferences, webinars that ISC2 normally organizes, which you can also benefit from. These are some of the benefits of the CISSP certification. So if you take a look at the exam requirements, for you to be eligible for the CISSP exam, these are some of the requirements or some mandatory certification requirements that you may need to meet. You need to have 5 years full-time professional security work experience in 2 or more of the 8 domains that we have in CISSP, meaning at least 5 years of experience in any 2 or more of those domains, 8 of them that were mentioned earlier on. However, if you don't have the experience, that's still okay. You can go ahead and take the exam. But then when you pass, you become an associate of the ISC2, not a CISSP. After you've now gained experience for 6 years, then they will now issue you the CISSP certification. So that's usually the requirement for the certification. So you apply for the exam. First of all, you visit ISC2 website and fill in your profile. Then you now go to Pearson VUE website to now apply for the exam. Pearson VUE, they are the exam bodies that are responsible for organizing the exam. So within the Pearson VUE site, you create your own username and password, and then you make payment for the exam and you schedule for the exam itself. Don't forget the exam fee is $750, and beyond that, the exam questions, so now you're going to be seeing between 100 to 150 questions. When I talk about between 100 to 150, the way it works is if you answer the questions and you're getting them correctly, once you hit the pass mark, the exam stops. That's actually the way it works. So that's why you can see some persons, they will answer less than 100 questions and they are done. While some persons, 110, 120. So it means that if you're taking the exam and the more you're seeing the questions, it simply means you've not yet hit the pass mark, as the case may be. So that's usually how the scoring is done for the CISSP exam. So when you answer any question correctly, the next question will now be determined based on the difficulty of the previous question. In other words, if you get any question correctly, the next question will be more difficult. If you get that one correctly, the next one will be more difficult. So that's usually how the questions progress. And the more difficult questions you answer, the higher the points that you get. If you fail a particular question, a lesser difficult question would come. And you can already tell that the lesser the difficulty, again, the lower the points. So in essence, if you're getting lower difficult questions, you're going to be having as much questions as possible. But then if you're having more difficult questions, you'll notice that you probably finish the exam with less questions. So the scoring is a bit complicated, but that's just to give you an explanation about how typically that the exam scoring is done. And then once you pass, you now need an endorsement to complete your certification, which of course we normally provide. Then beyond that, in order to be able to maintain your certification, every 3 years, you need to report what we call CPE, continuing professional education. So you need 120 CPE credits every 3 years, which of course translates into minimum of 40 CPEs per year. Continuing professional education simply means you need to continually keep developing yourself. Any hour spent in personal development will earn you 1 CPE. So it means on an annual basis, you should spend at least 40 hours in personal development. And that's the only way you can earn 40 CPEs. As a member, you pay an annual maintenance fee of $85. So this is the requirement for the exam, and then also how to be able to maintain your certification. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this particular session has been very informative for you. Don't forget to like, comment, as well as share this particular video. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also sign up as a member of this particular channel and you will be getting a whole lot of benefit as a member. You can also decide to sign up for any of our upcoming CISSP training or system security course, whether it is CISSP or CISA or CISM or CompTIA Security Plus. We are there to help you cover and most importantly, help you get certified at one sitting once you take the exam. Thank you so much once again. So in the next lesson, we're going to be taking a look at the very first domain, which of course focuses on security and risk management. I'll see you in the next video.